Woo! Good morning. Happy Mayo 8, May 8th, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Let's welcome our co-host, Mr. Christian Cano. Woo!
As everyone knows, we've been without a director for a month now, and we had a little production problem, so I do apologize. But welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Alexa, stop.
Oh. Listen! Oh my God!
Better than my teenager.
It is.
Woo!
Technology is incredible. Welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce, everyone. Everyone who's watching us live on Facebook, also who are going to be watching us later on YouTube and your favorite social media app. I want to welcome you. Today is May the 8th. Wow, it's incredible. It's Mother's Day weekend this weekend.
Yes.
Wow, God, I can't believe that's happening so far. And then
for
those of us who are lake boat people, we're closer to boat season. So.
Yes, I was just looking through my memories from Facebook, and yes.
So we're very excited. Thank you for being with us today. And we're going to go ahead and introduce our guest. And we do have a special neighbor who's in the audience, and maybe she'll join us during the show. But we'll go ahead and start to our right, because you are always right.
Yep, even though I'm lefty.
That's right.
Good morning. Ruth Perez here, Community Advocate for the City of Charlotte. And I am always happy to have y'all as our audience here.
Jeff Scott, man about town, trying to solve all the world's problems one cup at a time.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I don't know if I can lip that one.
He's always lisping.
That's a lot.
I'm Tira. I'm Medicare for All.
I'm Barb Bacon. I'm a healthcare advocate here in Charlotte.
Well, welcome everyone, and this is a time where you can share us to share our
Buttons.
Share our feed, but also we're going to talk about buttons. But before we do our buttons, let's salute to Coffee and Pan Dulce.
Salute.
Salute.
Salute, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
That's okay.
It's only
This
one.
has a special water protection.
Are you sure? Because that's
It's
what we
called
talked
a
about last
napkin.
time. Like, how quickly is it gonna affect your computer? Us doing that. That was me.
No, we
y'all.
said it last show, didn't I? I said I just can't wait for someone to.
I can't wait. Yep.
For that to happen.
There you go.
Tara,
I know, right?
Today's Pan
can't
Dulce
believe
is.
you.
Harris Theater or Food Lion? Or Bilo?
Today's Pan Dulce. It's actually Harris Theater.
Harris Theater.
Today's Pan Dulce is
Then I like
Harris
it.
Theater. It is cinnamon.
Cinnamon raisin.
It actually is. I actually have a big container.
It looks
of cinnamon
blueberry
in the freezer. I
cinnamon.
think,
Was it blueberry or
if you're
cinnamon?
allergic to
Thank you.
blueberry, then it is blueberry. I'm not exactly sure which one it is.
It looks-
But blueberries are good antioxidants.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
super.
It looks like
super healthy.
blueberry.
Yeah.
So, I can't eat while we're doing this, but thank you very much.
Which one do you want?
I can.
I can.
I know you.
I'm a multitasker.
If we happen to have buttons today, and I left my button on the counter, so
I probably grab
You have
yours.
your button. You have Medicare for
I
All.
probably
Well,
grab
I also
yours.
have Medicare for all.
You probably left
So-
it there.
Ruth, tell us what your button would be today.
I grab a button that I really liked it because I woke up really painful this morning about what's going on all around our state, all around our nation. It's sad to hear about Colorado again. Almost 20 years ago, what happened, and then we just passed a week ago in our city. So I am gone since voter. Let's make sure and follow up. I'm with Moms on Demand as well. And I do agree with Jeff. You know, I do support Amendment 2. I do want protection and safety, but I also want for people to carry their guns in a wisely manner. You know, for them to put them away from them, not to have those stickers on their bumper stickers saying I'm a gun owner, because then they'll break into your car and search for it, and then that's how we end up losing lives. So I am gun violence today.
Thank you, Ruth. If I had a button, it would have been that button, because that was my button.
Yes, I stole it. I stole it.
So let's explain to the audience.
Yes.
Kano has a jar of buttons in his kitchen, and when we come in, we raid his button jar.
People already think I'm a little off. So now they're gonna.
Now they know.
Now they don't think. Now they'll know.
So gun sense. I'm a gun sense voter as well, and I was a gun sense candidate. I believe in gun reform now, which does not mean taking anyone's guns away, because I don't know any responsible candidate that's ever run for office that wants to take anyone's guns away. All we want is safer, more responsible gun owners to protect our children, to protect those who are subject to or maybe possibly commit suicide, which is the largest, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the #1 way that people commit suicide, because when you try to commit suicide, it works. And I mean it in the
Hey Alex, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, so thank you. And Jeff?
Well, I wore my campaign button because it was on my Elvis shirt, and I just wanted to associate myself with Elvis.
So, for those who already know, Jeff Scott is the man about town, but he's also a Libertarian candidate for the congressional seat number 9, the special election. And so once again, we invite everyone on here who is running for office. We've had a Green Party candidate, and
we'll have him back.
Yeah, I wish we would have.
Alan will come
Yeah,
back.
Alan, I thought he was going to be here today.
We possibly were going to have Matthew, but I understand he is Matthew Ridenhour, who I actually have a campaign sign of Matthew Ridenhour. And I asked Stoney as well, Russian, to put a campaign. I wouldn't have a Dan Bishop sign it in my yard because I wanted people to make a decision between those two candidates. But I'm sorry, Tara.
No, I'll answer that. I talked to Matthew this morning. Since his regrets, he is actually doing his real job. He gets paid for.
His physical job.
I hate it when that happens.
Now, what does he do?
He practices obstetrics without a license.
Oh
no. Okay.
I have no idea.
Says,
Barbara, what does that mean?
I'm a risk manager.
Oh, okay.
And I have my team overseas.
Oh,
yeah. So he said there were 10 schedules. He tried to reschedule all of his team, but he couldn't because there's so many different people.
Well, we're always here every Wednesday from 10 to 11, so he's always welcome to hop in at least for 10 minutes. If he has to go, he can go back, but we would love to have him here.
Right, so we had kind of left this season open for the primary candidates if any of them wanted to show up. But now that the primaries are going to be over next Tuesday, there'll be 4 major candidates. And we bring in Alan. We can invite, assuming Dan wins, then we could invite over Dan Bishop, and we
Why
can
Dan
invite,
Bishop? Why not
and
Russian?
we could invite Dan
Why
McCready.
do we have to assume that?
Why can we bring in
It's just because
Russian?
he's leading in the polls.
That
So
doesn't mean anything.
was Hillary
But
Clinton.
the primary
Hillary
will be
Clinton was
open.
leading in the polls.
So
Yeah,
it's 6 days to the primary.
I've never led in a poll, so I just wanted everyone to know that.
Anyway,
Okay, so I'm Tara. That's okay. I am wearing my Medicare for All button, but I would like to give a shout out to Real Change Now. I did a press conference with them yesterday. They are the UNCC survivors of the shooting. So that is what I would wear. I totally agree with the tone of this meeting that we do need responsible gun laws. They have demands that they have listed that they want legislature to listen, and what they don't want legislators to say is vote people in with your values. They know that. They know how to vote, and they are looking at who is running, but they also want people who are willing to make those legislative changes.
My button is for I support religious freedom. I'm extremely upset about all the bombings and everything in the churches, and I just would like everybody to relax a little bit, give everybody their own freedoms, and let's just calm down. It's just absurd.
Thank you, Barbara. That's a topic that we have not really talked about a lot, but we're all very passionate. I know you're a huge
every day now.
First Amendment. As a person of faith, I also run as a secular candidate as well when I'm running as well, because in Terra,
well, you run on secular values.
Secular values, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But what you mentioned something I thought was very important, because I heard this weekend about the young lady, or not the lady that's running in the 9th district, who raised all the $1 million from the
Lee Brown,
real estate
Brown.
PAC,
right?
who actually doesn't live in the 9th congressional district, but she's got $1 million that she raised from the PAC because they obviously won the special interest person in her. Her ad says she has our values. That's such a subjective. What is our
value?
Exactly.
What is our value? Yeah.
I mean, Dan
My
McCready
values
says
may not be your values.
no, exactly. Dan McCready says that all the time as well. He says, my value, our value. What exactly does that mean?
Express it.
Well, let me
Explain that to us, Jeff.
Okay, because Barbara and I are fresh from the meeting last night, the primary debate, the last primary debate, and it was broadcast on WBT last night, and I believe it was broadcast again this morning. And it was a packed room. Lee Brown is probably one of the most poised candidates I've seen. I mean, it's true that she lives in Cabarrus County. It's true that she is backed by the NAR, and so, and it's also true that she worked for them about just a few days before she
mentioned last night.
Yeah,
Very pointedly.
and that's a problem, right? If you're running a PAC.
Yep.
And then you step down to run for office, that PAC can't support you. I think there's got to be a certain amount of time. I heard it was 120 days, but I'm not certain. It's something I need to look up. So she may actually be in violation of election law just for doing that. Okay. So having said that, and also saying that I disagree with her very strongly, she is a very poised candidate. She's good when she gets up. She's direct. She's clear. She's a little stiff, but she knows what she's talking about. So she's very, very capable candidate.
Well, the unofficial straw poll that I have taken this morning from our neighbors, apparently her messages connect. People know her name.
Yeah.
People, because they've seen her commercials, they are under the understanding that she, which is, it's all about name recognition, which is, I think, one of the reasons that people were saying that Dan Bishop was the person to beat, because he may have the most prominent name recognition, even though I disagree, because I think Stoney is very popular in Union County. Matthew is incredibly popular here in Mecklenburg County. And so, and I wouldn't just have anyone's. I actually would. I had Hillary Clinton's my front yard. Let's go ahead and talk about today's topic. We have 3 topics, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on them, or we could talk about this if you want to. The first topic is last night breaking news about 8 o'clock Eastern time. The New York Times released a story that Trump's taxes from 1984 to 1995, he lost $1 billion in income. And they calculated that this is really kind of embarrassing. And I know I was embarrassed for him just listening to it. He has lost the single most money of any American who's ever filed taxes. Is that crazy?
Wow.
And that's why he didn't pay taxes from 95, of course, because he had such a huge loss.
Wow.
And so I have not heard anything today, because I haven't had CNN on, because that's my station of choice, to hear what is going on or whatever. But it's apparently a huge story, because it talks about the fact that he lost so much money every year that the banks were just loaning him money because he was too big to fail. That he owed them so much money, so he would default, and the other one would just give him a loan because they didn't have a choice. It was either him file for bankruptcy, which he did on his casinos, but personally, he just kept being loaned money. So he was one of the persons they interviewed last night said he was the poorest, richest guy in America, and so it's a very interesting story, because it completely, which I think most of us kind of can tell when the person's kind of blowhard. Those of us who sit next to people who tell us how they are.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's the story. Does anybody want to talk about that, or is that not even an interesting story? I thought it was interesting. It was more hilarious to me that they said, he was the single largest.
It's true.
Well, let me make a couple of remarks just from a
in 30 seconds.
Just from a finance background.
Yes.
People lose money in the markets all the time. So if you remember what was going on between 85 and 95, that was the S&L crisis, right? And so California banks lost a lot of money. California S&Ls lost a lot of money. There was California had to set aside.
How many people went to jail?
A lot of people went to jail during that one. That was the good downturn in that respect. So Trump, you know, and I don't want to, because I haven't read the stories, I only know the headlines. I'm just trying to put some context around it, which means that, you know, people lose money in that business. Big developers lose money, and if they lose a lot of money, they still have. Yeah, well,
that's a lot of money.
You know, the thing is, if you still have the brand name and you still got the development capabilities and you still got, you know, borrowing capacity and all of those things, and they think you're still a good bet going forward, they're gonna give you money. Now $1 billion, that's a lot of tax carry forwards for many years that you can use to, offset.
That is what they had some of the senators, Democratic senators, and Congress people on the show last night. I'm sure this morning. That is the reason that they want to continue investigating him, is because if you lost $1 billion, that means you owe people, and they want to know who he owes. Because if you are in the hole $1 billion up till 1995, and they don't know what it is after that. They want to know who holds the notes on his properties or whatever, because I mean, he could be compromised. I mean, if the Chinese, for an example, actually own 50% of his debt, then he's going to be a little bit hesitant about. I know he's in a trade war right now with China, which is why the stock market crashed like 40 points yesterday. But there's a lot of conflict of interest in that for those who are conspiracy people, which I'm not a conspiracy person, but I do think it's very interesting that he has ridiculed every country, especially Latin American countries or countries of color. But he's never said one thing bad about Russia. Not even Putin's back. I mean, that is very unusual for those of us who grew up with parents who grew up in the Cold War, who Russia was our enemy. For him not to say anything about Russia is...
And it continues.
Yes.
So look, we've taken their diplomatic property, we've expelled them, we're imposing sanctions on them, we are doing a lot of nasty things against the Russians right now. So I don't agree with you on that. And on this tax stuff, I think it's I think it's very phony, personally. And I don't support Trump. I would never vote for him, and I think he's sleazy in many ways, but I think this tax thing is also going to be a big nothing.
But Trump, but Jeff,
excuse me, Jeff.
Yes, excuse me, Jeff. Are you still against investigating him and asking for his taxes?
Well, they've been revealed, right?
Not all.
They know where his losses are.
Only until 95.
Look.
Only until 95. They haven't had since 95.
Well,
okay.
You know, all the people in the FBI and the Treasury, they already have access.
Yes or no, and that's it.
Tell them it's rhetorical.
You know, the thing is, I think there are privacy concerns here. I think that there are privacy concerns about the Congress just saying, that guy, we want to see that guy's tax return.
But that is Trump's argument.
Yeah.
But the argument for, I would say, the American people is that every president who has ran for president since Nixon has released their taxes. So it's not something that is new. It's not something that people have just kind of come up with. And Trump at any time can see any of our taxes because he has that privilege as the president of the United States.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's illegal.
Google that.
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
okay.
So I'm opposed to the use of targeting groups and individuals based on their taxes.
And that's a libertarian
to try to find stuff. I actually believe in abolition of the income tax, and Matt Ridenhour has been very good on this issue during campaign stops about saying, you know, what he says.
Just have a sales tax instead of an income tax?
Well, there's other kinds of taxes.
There's
VATs, and when you think of the whole array of taxes that we're paying anyway, taking out the income tax would be.
And then we could get rid of the IRS.
Well, then we can get rid of basically the spy agency, which I consider under the Department of Treasury.
Which I don't think we'll ever get rid of IRS. No, because taxes been going on since the beginning. People started paying their own taxes for the properties. I mean, it wasn't that grown as now.
The fire department?
But how you gonna fund a lot of other things?
So there are things such as fees and subscriptions and basically voluntary payments for stuff like that.
And you know, going into that topic, or you know, I don't want to get discouraged from this, but thanks to a lot of immigrants, undocumented. That's the
Pay
way.
taxes
Yes,
but
that's
don't
the
get any
way
benefits.
IRS is holding up and funding other organizations and other companies. Thanks to all those taxes, because they don't get any
That was
refunds.
a
They
good
don't get
segue,
earned.
Ruth.
They don't get anything back on them, and plus, they're also their taxes are helping SSI and disabilities and other
Right.
benefits.
So anybody who's coming into the country and just traveling as a tourist is also paying
Contributing
Of course,
to
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, but once you stay here, I mean, you're only being a tourist and then you go back. But once you stay here and you start working,
Right.
a lot of people are, a lot of people say, well, they get paid under the water. No, they don't.
Yeah,
They
because
do report the 1099.
right.
They do go and make their own taxes because the IRS doesn't care if you are legal or
Right,
illegal.
and if they're renting, basically
they're paying
They want their
taxes,
money.
that's right.
paying
And
gas,
any real
anything,
property
yep,
that they have,
yep.
they're getting paid. They're
And
getting
it's only,
charged
and
fees,
it's not
yeah.
only governmental taxes.
Yeah.
You were talking about city, county,
Sure.
city, county, state.
HOA fees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so as much of a nuisance as those taxes are, I believe the income tax specifically is a deep intrusion into financial privacy. Now that
Sure.
means
That's
that
very true.
still, if banks would say, well, we need to know all that information. Well, if you need to know all that information, then you figure out a way of getting that
Getting it.
information, and then you keep it safe.
So that puts us
I
in
wouldn't
that
trust them either, but
privacy.
okay.
What is it? Third Party Privacy Act or something like that.
That's right. That raises a host of
Mhm.
other issues. I agree, but
Jeff, you brought up some topics that you and I have never talked about.
shocking.
We've debated a lot of things, and one of the things that we've never talked about as a Democratic libertarian now.
Yeah.
Slash Republican.
He's the universal candidate.
We've never. That's a great conversation that I think we need to make sure that all four of the candidates that are running the special election that they talk about, because that's interesting. I think
And
that
again,
helps.
Matt, just let me put in a plug for Matt, whose sign is on your front yard. He's been very good on this on the campaign trail in the Republican primary. So hats off to you. Cups up for
Cups
up
Thank
for
you.
Matt.
Thank you.
Not over the phone.
I don't know. Going up in color.
Be careful with the water.
Matt,
Anyway, Terry,
Tara, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say one of the things that we can do is go around the table and tell our parties, because we have such a diverse group.
We do, and we try to. Everyone knows that you're unaffiliated.
Yes. Oh yes. I'm
Uh,
unaffiliated, and I go not by what my religion or my principles or values, but I go more by what I want for the future of my grandkids and the future of my kids.
Right.
That's me.
I was obviously I'm a Democrat, but depends on which Democrats you talk to. If you talk to some of the
Progressives?
if you talk to some of the Hillary Clinton Democrats, I'm a Democrat in bad standing. Like you can actually be a Democrat in bad standing. If you talk to a progressive, I'm a pain in the ass to Hillary Clinton.
Nancy
Democrats.
Pelosi.
Yes.
I'm a pina colada, and we believe in dancing in the rain.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Maybe I'll be
Tara.
down.
So I'm a Democrat in good standing.
I'm unaffiliated and I'm happy to be that so far.
Wait a minute.
You need to
Tara-
commit.
Tara-
You need to commit.
Tara just said she's a Democrat
In good
in good stand. How can you tell me you're in good stand?
Especially
When
after
you're
you
over there
spill-
posting pictures
You're trying to sabotage
and attending
Coffee
Republican
Pan Dulce.
forums.
Absolutely. I will address that issue. I have
Please
no
do.
problem addressing that
Please.
issue. Okay.
Hold on. Tara,
I
explain
got
yourself,
a
woman.
post.
Explain
Mad at
yourself,
me.
Lucy.
All right. So I am a board member of Healthcare Justice NC, and our goal is to flip all government officials for Medicare for all, not just Democrats.
Exactly.
Democrats already know Medicare for all needs to be our future.
Except
The
Democrat.
Except for Democrats. Money from the
I
insurance
gotta say his name
companies.
10 times a show.
But the goal of Healthcare Justice NC is nonpartisan. We have to work with all candidates. Matthew and I, we are able, he will let anybody advocate to him. He doesn't block you because you're a Democrat. You're able to talk to him. And so, yes, I thought it was incredibly sweet. He sang happy
Happy
birthday
birthday to
to
her.
me.
Oh, wow.
He started the whole thing. He was wonderful.
He was really fantastic to me.
He wants your vote.
We don't. I can't vote for him.
Can't vote for him.
You can vote for him. I
Yeah.
can't vote for him.
Tara, maybe you can answer this question, or anybody can answer this question, because we've had shows about things like this and so forth.
Community service.
Well, the fact that at the end of the day, whether I'm a Democrat or whatever, we're all neighbors. I mean,
Sure,
I know we've gotten to the point where everyone is in their tribes
Yeah.
and so forth, but the majority of Americans, not everyone's as intense as we are as involved in political things as we are. Most Americans live everyday lives. They're they've got kids. They're doing whatever they need to do. They're doing normal things that we probably did before we decided to get into politics, so to speak. My point is that what I have not found, now Trump is an exception.
Okay.
Most Republicans that I know and that are friends or neighbors or whatever are incredibly friendly, incredibly neighborly. It's the Democrats that I know that are hard. They're really.
I agree with
And
you.
at first I thought it was just me. Well, it probably is just me. But I understand why there is, because the Democratic Party is a diverse party. Like we talked about, it is younger and browner. That's a Democratic Party.
And there's the good standards and the bad standards.
And so you have some of the old white Democrats, or we call the Bless Your Heart Democrats, or that I call Bless Your Heart Democrats. Yeah, it's somewhere.
They didn't come today.
And the Blue Dogs, who are really kind of Republican, but they run as Democrat, like Dan McCready. And you have those Democrats, and then you have your more progressive ones. And because there's so much diversity, it's like a family.
Yeah.
When you have so much diversity in a family, you don't always get along.
Sure, absolutely.
And so, but to your point, I do find like Dan Bishop, for example, is a nice man. He's a nice person. He'll tell you bless your heart behind your back, and believes that my family, shouldn't exist because of his support for HB2.
Yeah.
Well, many things, but that's one of the things. Actually, I'm not Andrew.
Not only because of the gays, because I just found out that Republicans have a group of LGBTs.
They do.
Yes,
So it's not. We have to kind of take away.
Log cabin.
Yeah, we have to take away those
We don't
mentalities
support
where.
Trump.
Yeah.
So I've spent a long time actually contemplating this issue because it hurts me when my friends text me and say, "Hey, don't hang out with that person. That's not a good person." And I'm like, "Okay, that person is my friend. And you're my friend too." So here's my thing. The way I look at our tribe is we have people that move the candidates. We have community leaders that their only focus can be to move specific candidates.
Yes.
And it's considered kind of like cheating on a candidate if you hang out with another candidate. Okay.
That's the reason Democrats have a hard time winning bigger elections other than local and county, because they still act like teenage kids.
Okay. Well, so
That's
I
like a
feel
teenage girl, isn't it? Don't hang around that person.
Well, like I got attacked last week just because I got my yard sign from Matthew, and I was so excited. I took a live video from the guy that was dropping off my sign. I mean, it made me feel good. You know why? Because how many times I've been tracking down Dan McCready. I'm an affiliated. I can go and choose whoever I want.
Sure, absolutely.
And I've tried to meet with him. I try to talk to him. I try to question for the past 3 years. Nothing.
Yeah.
And now I get Matthew into my house, and everybody was like, I had to put my post down because I didn't want to create no conflict.
Sure.
I'm not here to create conflict.
And so my role in this community is to become a community advocate to work on legislature. If I am mean to specific candidates and I have to advocate to them, they're not going to respond to me.
Tara,
So you have to
excellent point.
look at what your goal is when you join this community.
Yeah.
Once you burn a bridge, you cannot assume that you can get that bridge back.
Yeah.
Right.
I have burnt many bridges in the
Yes,
Democratic
you
Party.
have.
But sometimes
But
it's
not
it's
with me.
necessary to burn them down.
Sometimes you have to burn the bridge to
Yes.
build it back up again.
Okay.
Because let me tell you, after the election of the first election of Mark Harris, and when Mark Harris won, I purposely did not go after Mark Harris because he's always treated me with kindness, respect, even though he's certain issues that we don't agree with. There were certain issues that there was a lot of things that and so I knew that he was going to become our congressperson at the time, and I knew that eventually we would have to lobby him and ask for things. And when I met him during all of this thing. I ran into him at the government center, and he was so gracious. He talked with me, and I said, "I'm sorry what you're going through," you know, and I said, and whatever, and he was very diplomatic. He said, "After this is all over, please come and see me in D.C. and let's talk about issues that are important to you." That is what leaders do.
Exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
Democrats, I have not heard one word ever since being called an a-hole from Dan McCready. I have never heard one word from Dan McCready or anyone on his team. And I was the nominee in 2016. You would think that even our state party chairperson or the county crazy lady or chairperson would call us and say, "Christian, I know," this is what leaders do. "Christian, I know that there have been some whatever. How can we move forward? How can we build a bridge? How can we get your support for Dan McCready?" None of that has ever happened.
I had to
And
end up getting a phone call
That's
from,
why he's going to lose.
who was
Let
it?
me,
Manager's manager? The one that called me?
Oh, yes.
Called me and
I
said
actually-
the ladies were out there at the
We actually had Democratic precinct chair people telling people not
Not
to
to
vote
vote.
for me during the primary.
and I have it recorded.
Robert Pittenger's campaign had to call us to report it. And this Fitzgerald lady, Jan Fitzgerald, who's one of the crazy old precinct ladies in Democratic Party, apparently was out there telling people not to vote for Christian Cano. She's
Being
a
a
precinct
Democrat,
person.
being a Democrat in the party.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you my other position on this.
In 30 seconds, because we're going to go to our next topic.
Again, attack policies, attack bad policies, and don't attack people.
Yeah,
Because when you attack people, you burn your bridges. And all of this is public.
Sure.
And so they're going to watch what everybody's going to say.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to vote for me anyway. This is the difference. This is the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. The Republican Party runs to their base and they run with kahunas. Democrats run afraid to hurt someone else's feelings where they're not even going to vote for you. I would rather have a strong Democrat like AOC or someone who tells me what it is than some coward like Dan McCready. That's what I want to represent me. Now, that's what I'm looking for. So, and that's one of the reasons why I think that we get beat all the time at higher levels is because we get these Democrats like Governor Cooper, like Joe Biden, who are trying to please everyone instead of at least trying to make sure their base is lined up. And so that's how I run. If that's and I have never been shy when I ran for office, and I had the bless your heart women telling me, "Take your cowboy hat off and don't do this." I said, "Don't vote for me. If I'm not the candidate for you, don't vote for me." It's very simple. But they didn't because I got killed in the primary. but my point is, these are the policies that I am supporting: Medicare for all, gun reform now, abolish ICE, medical cannabis. Those are issues that, and we've talked about some other issues, VA, making sure LGBT people can serve in the military. Those are important issues that are very important to me. How I get about it, if that is important to you, then don't vote for me. Vote for someone like Dan McCready, who's not going to do anything except obstruct Nancy Pelosi.
Well, let me make one final point on this
ahead.
topic, which is that when I'm out as a candidate, I consider every other candidate to be a potential coworker.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And not, I can't treat them as ideological enemies. Now we know that the bread and butter of our parties is people who are sort of ideologically on fire. So you're always going to get grief from the backbenchers who don't want to do the politicking, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So that's just, and just to correct one thing Chris said, I think it's cojones and not kahunas.
That's probably
Thank
true.
you, teacher.
All right.
Us Texans, we have an accent.
Does anybody else want to talk about Trump's $1 billion?
No.
Worth?
We're not.
It's not worth it.
Well, let's put it aside for next week, and we'll have a little more
Yeah.
information,
Yes.
a little more.
The more we
coverage.
mention his name, it's like
Yeah.
making him more
Because
popular.
You
there
have
is-
some comments you want to read.
Yes. Hi, Lynn Marie.
Hey, Lynn.
Oh, hey, Lynn.
Yes, she said, appreciate y'all. Here's a group of local compassionate humans who advocate for many in our community who struggles. Thank you for what you do as well.
Yes, you are a strong advocate
Yes,
as well.
she is. She's a great friend also.
One of the things I wanted to talk about as we'll go to our next session, which is very briefly the NCO9 election update, which is going to be
Lord.
next Tuesday is the final. We're still in early voting. Early voting stops Saturday
Right.
at 1 o'clock. Is that
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So if you have not early voted, if you're a registered Republican or if you're unaffiliated, you can vote in the.
Now that you say that, let me share something. I went to the DMV last week, and I had to change my address. I'm still under the district. I'm still in the same county. And the lady asked me, and I said, I'm here just to change my address. And she said, are you registered to vote? And I said, yes, ma'am. I just need to change the address. Well, guess what? She re-registered me. I got a letter back saying that I registered late. And I'm like, wait a minute. Am I going to be able to vote or not?
I think that.
That's very tricky.
Yes, it is. So, and I got the letter, and I got my other little post saying I need
Well,
to
girl,
change
now
my
that you've said it
address.
to the whole world, you can't go in there and vote because they're going to say, see, those Mexicans are illegal. Vote.
No, but I'm gonna go back to DMV and they better fix it because I'm already registered.
That's why you wanted to come over, so they can all vote for you.
There might be a reward for turning people in. I'll split it with
Where
you.
do you
I'll split it with you.
Where do I live?
So please vote.
Just be careful, people. Just be careful.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a good time to go and change because now I'm scared.
So
I need somebody to contact me and tell me what to do.
Okay, so one thing about early voting and voting so far is turnout is very low.
Very low.
And I was talking to
We have to wait until the last
campaign
minute.
manager Jay Sams, and he was saying, "This is low. This is like ridiculous."
Yeah, it could be determined like 5 votes.
Yeah.
So if you have a family of 2, you get some neighbors,
Y'all better
you
go.
could determine.
Yeah,
Driving
so-
my neighbors.
So this is gonna have a big.
So
effect
right now,
on the
Dan
outcome.
Bishop is ahead.
Well,
we don't know.
he
We
tends
don't
to
know.
be in the straw polls and the sort of visible support people with badges and stuff like that.
And he pays those people. So.
And yeah.
So Jeff, I'm
Yeah.
curious because
Okay.
I obviously have my
Mm.
views towards the special election, who I think is going to win, who I think is not going to win, because
Yeah.
I think it all depends on who's going to turn their base out.
Right.
And we've had this conversation
Right.
that the Republicans have a tendency to turn their base out, and the current Democratic nominee is not running to the base, and so they're not going to turn out. So, let's say hypothetically, if Dan Bishop gets in,
Yeah.
Dan McCready, there's too many Dans. Dan M.
With
Yeah.
the right, wrong, and the wrong.
Yes,
The
yes.
right Dan and the wrong.
Dan M.
Yeah.
is just going to run the same kind of campaign that he ran against Mark Harris, and it's I'm not Dan Bishop, HB2.
Yeah.
He's never going to
That's
tell anybody where he stands, and that's going to benefit Dan Bishop
Yeah.
because Dan McCready is just now trying. Dan McCready has attended 3 events in the last month, which is more than he has in a year.
Well, I'm
It
not.
is incredible.
He
The
is- he is
Republicans
doing-
have
he's
attended
doing a
more
lot of
events in
appearances.
2 months
Yeah.
than Dan McCready has in 3 years.
Well,
Wow.
that's fine
Is that
because
crazy?
he's going out. He's going to a lot of events. I see. I'm on his feed, so I see the stuff that he's doing. He's going out to the other counties, so I think he's actually doing all of the right things. He's appearing before these voting groups, and he wants to make sure he's shored up in the rural areas.
So do you think that's too late?
No, because the primary is not even over yet. I mean, there's going to be 4 months till September. It's like all through the summer. Summer hasn't even started yet, so this thing won't be over until September. So you've got
So
July
you think
and
that he's
August.
going? You think, or
Campaigning.
does anyone think that any of the candidates that are running are going to convince anyone else between now and the election, or do you think that decision has already been made?
Well,
Because it's the election that will never end. If you don't know who you're going to vote for by now,
But
Maybe
there's
you
so
should-
much
no,
apathy out there.
there's a lot of apathy, and
have they made up their mind yet? I don't think so.
yeah.
So let's get through
And
this.
I agree,
Yeah.
and
And
a lot
then-
of
And
You're
then,
gonna
then
make
it's
it
going to
through.
And a lot
pedal
of-
to the metal and see who's
a lot
got
of people
it, I
will
think.
decide in the last 2 weeks. There's a lot to be said for just keeping your powder dry until the last 2 weeks
Mhm.
and just saying, spend all that money. Then that's when you do the get out the
Right.
vote, and people kind of wake up from their slumber. I mean, it's hard to tell how apathetic people are because we're all involved, right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all going out.
That's
we're
right.
talking about this all the
listening,
time.
I'm listening
Yeah,
to
we're
people
looking
at
from
it
outside of
Yeah.
North Carolina, and they're watching what's
Yes.
going on.
We don't.
And
Out in the
Republicans are like, you better not screw up this time. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the turnout itself is giving us a sign.
Yeah.
It's telling us that people are kind of like still checked
Slacking, yeah.
out.
And so you would think that if the turnout is low, which it looks like it's going to be, and then if the turnout is going to be low in the general election, in a Republican-leaning district, it will tend to favor the Republicans because their base is more likely to come out than Democrats. We said it again. The Democrat has to win their base plus, and if you're not even trying to get your base, the plus doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I will, because I do want to compliment Dan McCready at least one time every show. I do thank him for starting to get out there and talking to. I think it's too late. I think when you have been telling people, I've been campaigning for 2.5 years and the country over party, this, you're a joke to people.
Well, the other guys.
I watched an hour-long presentation that he made at that Crossroads coffee place, and that was a supportive crowd, and he got a couple of fairly easy questions that I think he just fumbled. So he doesn't want to be in a setting where he is going to look uncomfortable. I totally understand that. If I was his age, I would be in the exact same boat. I would say I'm uncomfortable talking about these very worldly, complicated issues. I would not be doing that.
We talk about this all the time.
Yeah, I know.
It's a job you're applying for. If you can't go to the interview, don't apply for the darn job.
So I think that if he is in a debate with Dan Bishop is gonna
kill him.
Well, it's gonna kill him because he's capable.
Matthew too.
And he doesn't.
I would love to see him in Stoney.
I know, but he doesn't have to do the he doesn't have to do.
Well, they did discuss that.
See, Stoney and who?
They did. I'm like, oh my god.
What they say?
Stoney and McCready would be funny to watch.
Stoney debating.
Because
Stoney's
bring up.
Stoney's a no-no.
I would like to see Matt and Dan.
So Stoney's problem is he wants to continue.
Because they're both at the same, level age and stuff.
Well, there was a question. Well, my opinion of last night, I didn't like some of the pointed questions. The one that Lee got.
Yeah.
I thought that was almost character assassination to some point. The way it was asked.
Mm-hmm.
I get uncomfortable with some of
Lee
that.
Brown?
I thought she did really well, but she had a little bit of a body language thing going on afterwards, but it was very pointed against her for all the money
that she raised.
Perhaps some kind of fraud investigation because she didn't meet the number of days.
Well, I think she was demonstrating a lot of strength there.
Yes, and she did, but
and so held
got
up under
some
fire.
Tone from her every once in a while.
Well, that's good.
Decidedly so.
If people are voting for someone for Congress, they're throwing them into this mosh pit, and you've got to be tough-minded. And that's why I think Bishop, when he does run, assuming he wins, he's just going to be tougher-minded. Absolutely, he's just smarter.
Very hard.
He's more capable. I mean, I don't like many of the things he says about infanticide, but he's gracious and he's
well,
just
you
going
gotta
to
keep in mind that he has experience. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. He knows where he stands at, and his platform and everything that he's been doing.
And
can I ask a question?
No.
Yes, Tara.
What?
So Dan Bishop.
Again, another one.
So Dan Bishop is leaving a seat to apply to another seat.
Technically.
Ooh, cheers! I'm glad you noticed that. Oh my God!
Okay. So what happens to that seat?
There'll be
if he
they'll
wins?
appoint the Republicans will if he wins the election. The just like and this is what people don't understand. Just like Jeff Jackson got his seat, he wasn't elected. Jeff Jackson was appointed by he just barely got in by 2 people. Then he had to run again.
Yeah.
And so
somebody will be appointed from the Republican
the
Party.
precincts chair people will their executive committee will vote and they will appoint someone to replace him, and then he'll have to run if that person or he
to finish the term, and then he will have to run.
Yeah. So, which is a wonderful play because it's hard to beat incumbents, which is which is why I like Jeff Jackson.
That's where we have to be careful.
But he's never run a tough campaign. He was appointed barely by his own party, and then he ran in a very, very democratic. He's going to win, but he doesn't stand for anything that's democratic. So I don't think Jeff Jackson, if he decides to run for Senate, I don't think he's even going to get past the primary.
Yeah.
So. But
he's another
he
Dan
has
McCready.
One of the strongest followings because I follow all of them.
Jeff
Jackson has one of the strongest followings I've ever seen.
He's very popular.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean
that
you're going to
pre-K funding.
But
right,
also keep in mind, he's not only
out.
popular, but he also attends a lot of the community meetings. I mean, I've seen him around many
Only
times.
if, Jeff Jackson.
Yes.
He does, but Jeff Jackson will only attend if he can speak. Jeff Jackson never attends a meeting to sit in the back.
No.
I've never seen Jeff Jackson in an event
I
where he didn't
went
want
to
speak.
the not Reader Memorial, one of those churches up there, and he was there. He just then said hi and then
For the Black Political Cause or something.
and he didn't have to speak or anything.
Well, most of
but
those white candidates only show up to the black churches when they're ready.
Stop
to run.
saying that.
It's true. We all know that's true. You never see Julie Eisel anywhere until she's about to run for office. Anyway,
So
I know
let's
you're
be
a
careful.
Julie, you're a
Let's
Julie
be.
fan.
I love everybody. Let's be
I love
careful
everybody
of who's
too.
gonna
Yes.
take that seat.
Lynn, yes, Jeff Jackson needs to get on board with Medicare for all. You're
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
I agree, especially if he wants to. I think any Democrat who's running has to embrace Medicare for all, or they're not going to get out of the primary. And so that's what I think is going to, at least at the level that, of a level. Okay, that's it for NCO. So let's talk about constitutional quote of the week.
That's me.
Yay!
We are on number
19.
Page 29.
Where'd it
XIX.
go? Where'd it go?
Page 29.
29.
Page 29. The
Okay.
right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
Exactly.
So is it a mistake to give women
Hey.
a vote?
Do you want to live?
Oh my
Hey,
God!
there's
You
three
are
against
some of
you,
the
so.
strongest women in this.
Oh my God!
I'm just throwing that out there.
Well,
Yeah, you threw it out.
one of the
We're
things that-
rejecting
Well,
it.
no. Let's just have a brief moment and talk about
Sure.
whether voting, the expansion of the voting franchise to say, what Bernie's talking about, felons, and are also talking about 16-year-olds,
Yes.
because I know this is a big Democratic issue about how many. Well, Bernie,
Yeah.
and this came up on the primary campaign. We want to expand voting. I used to joke with this high school class I used to come speak to that you should look at what voting would look like, what the voting outcome would look like if you only counted the votes of people who filled out tax returns, right? And you'd get a whole different look from the people who are actually, paying the bills.
Right.
You could look at, how 16-year-olds vote and say, well,
That
what
would
would the
scare
country
me
look
to
like?
death.
Yeah. So we know that, demographics are very predictive
Yes.
of outcomes. So what do you think? Because the parties have all this great information about the demographics, and they can predict how people vote, which is why this gerrymandering problem is so difficult, right? But it allows politicians to choose their voters and choose their voting blocks. So expanding the franchise is a way to but to build incumbency and build barriers against political competition.
So what I'm hearing from you is that we should put hurdles in front of people instead of making it easier for people to vote.
No, I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm just saying that the answer to a lot of the problems that we face in a democracy are not answered by expanding the franchise.
Yeah.
Okay?
Isn't that what democracy is? That everyone has a
Well,
right
no,
to vote?
we have a representative government, right?
Okay,
Everybody can
sure.
be represented, but we do have different sorts of terms. We have limits on powers. We
Sure.
have a
That's what
constitutional
I
structure.
really don't understand about that.
Well, I would.
So,
Jeff,
and that's why when we were reading the
Yeah, the
16
Constitution, but
about
still.
about the Senate and direct election of Senate, that's a relatively new development,
Sure.
right? That happened.
after the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, in the period.
And then they got
Yes.
adjusted.
Yeah.
Well, let me go on the record as saying that I disagree with Jeff Scott.
Oh Lord.
That I believe that we should if you are an American citizen, and regardless if you pay income taxes, you pay taxes somehow. Donald Trump didn't pay any
I pay to
taxes
breathe.
and lost $1 billion, and he's president of the United States.
Yep.
So I'm all about a level playing field, and I believe that if you the more people you get to vote, the more represented it is of the people that you are running. So so yes, does it make it harder for whoever to win it? Yeah, I think it's always to our advantage to get more people to vote. I don't think in restricting people.
I'm against felons not to be able to vote, except for the ones that are inside jail. That's not fair.
So you're against felons being able to vote?
No, I'm against for them not.
So you believe they should be expelled?
They should be
once they've paid for their crime. Is that what you said?
Well, no, anybody, because I mean we have felons out there that are just tagged as felons. They don't have to pay nothing. They just being tagged as felons, and they have the right to vote.
I agree with you. I thought you were saying the opposite.
No.
Tara, do you have an opinion on this?
This is the felon discussion. So I was under the understanding that once you have served your time,
yes,
you are eligible to vote.
Yes.
So, like, and I'll give you a for instance.
If you're in prison?
No, like, for instance, we have one potential candidate that has written on his Facebook, Gemini.
Yeah.
He spent 20 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
He is now currently reformed and out. He, as a person, he's always been very good to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe they can vote once they have served their time.
Are there? So what you're saying is, I understand what you're saying. You were talking about Bernie Sanders has proposed or has suggested that we allow felons to vote, and I didn't know that part of it because believe it or not, I even though I did support Bernie Sanders, there's many things that I don't think
I did. You no longer support?
No, I do support. I support all the Democrats that are running except Biden. But
a little aside there.
I just don't want anybody to smell my hair. I'm just.
Hey, anybody wants to read Lean's comment?
Well, let me just go on record here about the felon issue, that I actually like the idea of felons in jail being able to vote, because I think that they're counted in the census and they've got representation, and so they should be able to vote in the same way that I believe quote illegal immigrants who are paying taxes and paying rent in certain municipalities should be able to vote for their school board.
Well, that's completely different than what I heard just a while ago. So
I know.
I appreciate you clarifying that.
But there's still a question about democracy, which we don't have to go into, about whether expanding the franchise, so wide leads to better outcomes.
Yes.
Whether it actually leads to better outcomes.
Well, understandably, Jeff, and this is one of the things that we have, which is why we try to get a diverse group of neighbors here talking, and obviously sometimes we don't have that opportunity, is I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And we all have the silos that we come from or whatever whatever. If you are a person who's been marginalized, a person of color, a transgender person, an LGBT person, or whatever, a woman,
a person who's been framed for a crime and is spending time.
You have a tendency to be very skeptical when people who are privileged try to limit their ability to compete on a level playing field. So anytime there is so when we talk about voter ID, logically for me as a Democrat, Democrat Libertarian, I have to show an ID to get into a nightclub in Key West. I still get ID to drink. So I don't understand why the issue is to show an ID to vote. However, I did not live in a time where I was marginalized and was not allowed to vote. And so there are people who have had family members who weren't allowed to vote because of poll taxes or whatever the case may be. And so as a Democrat, I try to err on the side of their freedom. So I'm willing to sacrifice the possible one Ruth who may vote illegally to save their ability to vote. And so
by the way, I got my real ID now with the
you did?
star.
Good. We
gotta talk about that.
We actually have to have a show on that because that's going to be very important. You're going to have a lot of people who aren't going to be able to
Because I am an immigrant, but legally in the United States.
You're going to have a lot of bless your heart people upset at the Charlotte airport when they're about to fly. They're like, I cannot get, ma'am, you have to have a real ID. I got it.
I got it.
I've never been so disrespected. All right. I forgot what we're talking
before we move forward,
Go
let's
ahead.
read one of our audience comment. This is Lynn again. She said, I moved here from a town with a prison and worked in a county nursing home in western, New York? Across from a prison. Prisoners are counted in the census where they are incarcerated. This rule gives the Republicans more gerrymander power, realize.
So she kind of agrees with what you're talking about.
Because again, this goes back to the ability of the incumbent parties and the incumbent power to draw the districts in the way that they see fit, that keeps them in power.
See, that's where
and excludes competition.
I would like not only the people that are inside incarcerated to be able to be counted in, but also people that are being out in the streets, that they got tagged. I've dealt with teenagers, and some of these teenagers that I know, they got tagged as a felon by not doing something
having like 3
big.
joints.
But at an age of 16,
Right.
now they are turning 18 and they're not able to vote because they're felon. That's how the society tags them, and they're not doing anything wrong. They're being, they're progressing, they're working, they're going to school, but they're not able to vote. So who's gonna be their voice? How they're gonna defend themselves? What if they don't want the person that is taking a seat? How can we advocate for that?
And that's actually a really good point, because we vote judges in and out.
Yeah.
And judges are in control of their fate.
Right.
I just want to quickly, before we wrap things up, I want to just highlight 2 things. The 9th Congressional District, both Republicans and Democrats had their county conventions, I think, in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
And as a Democrat, in bad standing, I did
really bad.
Slash Libertarian Republican.
That's right. I did receive the resolutions that were passed during the Democratic, and then of course the resolutions are passed at the county, and then they go to the state, and they vote on resolutions. Well, I'm reading all of these resolutions, which is against completely reverse HB2, which was not completely done. HB 142. There's a lot of resolutions, improve Medicare for all, that they support. They also, when I was on the 9th Congressional District
What is this?
delegation.
Firearm hazards fee?
Yes. So there's a lot of resolutions, gun reform, a lot of these.
Is this available to the public?
Yes, you can read this. And these are all the resolutions that are passed. One of the most important resolutions that was passed 2 years ago was anyone who was running for Congress had to show their tax returns. And I showed my tax returns in 2016. So the reason I'm saying this, because I think it's incredibly hypocritical that the 9th Congressional District passes all these resolutions and their nominee doesn't support one of these resolutions.
Oh, you're kidding.
Not one of these resolutions. Dan McCready doesn't even support full
Really?
The ban, the HB2.
He doesn't support any of this. So I think it's so, and it shows the hypocrisy of our current situation right now in the 9th Congressional District, that they just want someone elected, even if it's a bad person. And that's why people get Yes. And so all of these resolutions, Dan McCready doesn't support one of these resolutions.
How many resolutions are they?
There, I think,
I
are
see
like
9.
This is great opposition.
Yes.
No, it is. It is. not to mention the fact that I think it's also incredibly hypocritical that the Conservation Society of North Carolina endorsed Dan McCready when he ran against me. But yet Dan McCready is not for windmill, for wind energy. He donated money to Republicans to stop. It's a solar. It's such, the hypocrisy within our Democratic Party is so huge, and people get mad at me all the time. And that's the reason I say, when you say don't burn bridges, sometimes you got to burn the darn bridge to build it back up. The Democratic Party in North Carolina is so corrupt. Our own state party chairperson was working for the same person who donated money to the Republican state party chairperson who's been indicted. Our own state party chairperson's hands are dirty. It's so anyone who says that they're for this, all I want is a level playing field for everyone. And I said this not just about Dan McCready. I said the same thing about Robert Pittenger. About his corrupt land dealings, I've said the same thing. I've never changed my tone, whether it was Dan McCready, whether it was Val Lyles, whether it was Jennifer Roberts. I've been tried to be fair. So when people say, you know, oh, Christian, this is, I have been completely consistent in where I stand on every single issue.
Well, let me
not going to get me elected, but
still.
let me point people to the Libertarian Party of Mecklenburg County webpage, because I posted a 40-second clip of Pat McCrory talking about in an
how
interview,
libertarians still are votes.
Talking to, and I can't remember the interviewer, but it's just a clip where you can see this kind of major party arrogance that we're talking about, and it comes right out of McCrory's mouth, saying there was a libertarian in the race who stole my vote.
I did see that.
You know,
and I thought I was winning.
And there it is. So I've tweeted it out a couple of times, and I put it on our Facebook page, and it's on the state. I believe it's on the state page.
And then the last thing I'm going to say about Dan McCready, because I wanted to talk about him 10 times today, is
you kind of, because I think you went over already.
No. I've got two more, but I'm just going to say one more. Everyone got on my case. What, in 2017 when I called him a coward and a P, and I shouldn't use the P word. I shouldn't.
And you were not running at that time. You were in the summer. There was nothing.
Right. I should have used the P word because that is derogatory, and I became a member of National Organization of Women and understood how that word is used to devalue women. And
thank you for educating yourself.
Yes, and I apologize for that because I grew up, and it was not an excuse, but I grew up with a single dad who raised 3 boys and a girl, and you know it was
a normal language.
You grow and you learn from that, and I apologize from that. I should have used the word mangina because he's not a P, he's a mangina. So the reason I'm saying this is because anyone who gets upset about someone calling Dan McCready, you don't know how many articles in the last 2 weeks have had this title: Democrat running for Congress shows he's a big shameful coward. There are Democrats all over the nation that are writing articles about how Dan McCready is a coward, and they're actually using worse language than me. So I want the Democrats to be just as fair and point their finger at things. When I saw these articles, I was like, I can't believe it.
This is the Habitat Humanity hat that we have on.
So that's all we're going to talk about now.
Okay.
That's all the time we have. I think we have gone over. Where are you guys going to be? I'm sorry. I mean, take the focus off of this.
Why did you start with this? Why you have to close with it? You're just so...
It was an altar call. I felt the moment.
I just want to say that just to counter Chris here for a second.
Yes.
He is running a very professional campaign. The people working for him are very smart, very sharp. He's getting out. He's doing all the right things. He's got a very influential
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about McCready. It's, okay,
I
strongly disagree with him.
So
we agree that
we have to
I don't think he should be in the race, but he's got a capable organization.
We have to have a conversation on how you define professional. Because
okay, that's fine.
Tara, you're being recorded.
Okay.
Because that is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Why don't we just, can you make me a copy? I need to read that. Thank you.
All right.
And you don't want to criticize him so much that I end up defending it.
Oh my
We're
God.
there though, aren't we there?
Well, yeah.
Watch.
I'm just trying
I just want to hear when he
I'm
loses
trying to
his
be
spot,
fair.
he's going to be like another McCrory.
I want to be
My
very
votes
clear.
were stolen
I just
because
wanna
of a
be-
libertarian.
We got some fine
Wait,
print
wait,
to do.
I want to be very clear. I'm very neutral on this issue. I do.
Is that a disclaimer?
I absolutely love
With a
Kendo. He's
capital
one of my
T.
best friends, but I want to be clear to the audience that I am neutral on this issue.
And I'm stridently neutral.
But Tara, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan and you like the Panthers, right?
I don't like football.
Oh.
All right. My point was, you can be friends with people and not agree.
I totally
Yes.
agree. And that's why
I don't understand.
agree.
I don't understand why, and I appreciate you try to clarify that, but I don't understand any rational adult that would knock you or knock any because of what I have said.
Sure, absolutely.
Guilt by association for some people.
So-
Because a lot of people
okay.
thinks about it, and they see it as a bias.
So this is what
You
I'm
know?
saying. I don't want their votes.
Sure.
If
okay.
those are the people that are, I don't want their votes. I believe that there are enough people with common sense,
Yeah.
and can vote for people for. Well, some people have common sense. My point
Bless
is,
your heart.
my point is, I'm never going to apologize for standing up for my family.
Sure.
I'm never going to apologize to saying Dan McCready is a coward because he does not respect the fact that I am LGBT and that if I had an LGBT son or daughter, or transgender son or daughter, they should be able to join the military and fight for this country just as well as he had.
Sure.
I'm never going to apologize for saying that I believe that people deserve Medicare for all and that no one should go bankrupt. I'm never going to apologize for saying that a military person should have medical cannabis to help them get through PTSD. I'm never going to apologize for those things. And if people are upset about because I call a Democratic, it'd be different. He's a Democrat.
Sure.
Now,
if you were running under a different party, under a different
they
label,
would be
it'd
going,
different.
"Ooh,
Yeah.
you go,
Yeah.
Christian." But because he's a Democrat,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
And,
So,
parties have this problem.
Yeah.
Purity problem.
I'm gonna interject. I just want the audience to know, Kano and I, like, we bonded. I was in the Cancer Institute for a long time when I started this, and Kano, he was always understanding of my needs. He always took care of me. He always saved me the NC.
That's right. You know how hard that is for me to get.
He was very nurturing to me. So he has earned my respect as a friend. And we talk about the things we disagree with, you know, but we're able to advocate together through most of it, the issues.
And like I said, I can chew gum and walk at the same time. I have had conversations with Jeff, just even on this show, that has enlightened me, and that that I have been, like, his stance on veterans. He has and we wanted to do a whole show on veterans.
Yeah.
He has
We
this
should.
idea about how to reform the Veterans Administration, which I'd never heard about. And I thought, well, that was
Yeah.
a good. Just because I'm a Democrat
And that
doesn't mean
came
that I
up
can't
last
listen
night,
to
too.
libertarian ideas or the Republicans. I understand. I mean, I hear some things. I'm personally pro-life, but I believe in a woman's right to make a
choose.
decision for her. So I think you can chew gum, you know, at the same time. But I know we've had these conversations, and it's not about
We
me.
just gotta learn how to agree to disagree.
Exactly.
And keep walking.
And keep moving.
That's it.
Yes.
We're going to wrap up, and on that note, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for our audience. Let's
Thank you.
our audience today. Hopefully,
You should stand so the mirror can
hold
see you.
yourself.
that's right. We've gone just a little over, and as we go out, please tell us where you're going to be next time as we listen to Alexa play Pandora.
Well, don't forget, everyone, if you speak Spanish, I have a Spanish show. It's called Espacio Latino every Tuesday from 12 to 1. And that's completely to my immigrant Spanish-speaking fellows. And y'all have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. And let's keep the honor not by gifts, but by respect.
I'm going to be celebrating with my dog this weekend. So I'm going to be picking him up later. We're going to go around the parks, around the greenways. So if you see me out there with my dog,
No swimming today?
I will go swimming later. But I'll have my dog all weekend. So there you go.
So there's Democratic women tonight, and then also there's a public budget hearing. I'm going to speak on the budget at the county commissioners on Thursday night. So I'd love for you to come.
I'll go.
Okay, your turn.
I'm going to continue my research on the opioid crisis and start knocking on doors for people that said they were going to help me. I'm going to give them a friendly reminder.
We're here.
May 22nd is a rally
I
in the
know,
state.
I saw
yeah.
that, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm here. Where are you going to be at? You never said.
I will be wherever Tara tells me to be. All right.
Bye, everyone.